Every car owner knows the feeling. The engine light comes on, the dealership quotes $600 in cleaning services and fuel treatments, and you walk out with a lighter wallet and the same nagging hesitation at idle. Back in 1973, Seu Ricardo, a master mechanic who could rebuild a carburetor by the sound of an engine, had a different method. He would reach for a metal can, pour something that cost less than a loaf of bread into the intake, and fix the exact same problem without a single scanner. The ingredient is still on the shelf today, but the industry has a strong financial reason to make sure you never hear about it. Here is what the old master saw that the modern computer misses. You have probably handed a mechanic over $200 for a throttle body cleaning, only to have the same rough idle come back within a month. The carbon buildup returns because the expensive aerosol never reaches the internal passages where the real blockage sits. Seu Ricardo knew this in 1973. He would take a can of the cheapest automatic transmission fluid he could find, about 50 cents at the time, and dribble it gently into the vacuum line while the engine idled. The fluid has detergents strong enough to dissolve varnish inside a transmission, so it cuts through carbon on intake valves like a hot knife. The dealership cleaner attacks the surface. The transmission fluid penetrates the crust. The contradiction is brutal. A product meant for one job outperforms the specialized chemicals because the modern industry profits from repeat treatments. The specific fix costs you pocket change and 15 minutes of your time if your car was built before 2007, but the method still works on many later models with the right technique. Here is the part you are not supposed to know. The additive package in that 50-cent fluid matches the chemical composition of many professional induction cleaning kits. The Society of Automotive Engineers published paper number 2003-910.3, measuring the detergent strength of automatic transmission fluid against commercial intake cleaners. The transmission fluid removed 23% more carbon deposits in controlled bench tests. Seu Ricardo had no paper to quote. He learned it by feel, watching the exhaust smoke thin out as the engine smoothed, listening for the knock to fade. He knew that if the fluid came out at operating temperature, it atomized better and washed the back of the valves without pooling in the cylinder. A dealership technician might run a cleaning cycle with a machine that costs $15,000. Seu Ricardo used a funnel, a vacuum line, and a can from the shelf. Here is the thing about that funnel, that vacuum line, and that can from the shelf. It is not just a cheaper option. It is a proof that the industry has been selling you a solution that was designed to fail twice. If you want to keep uncovering these hidden mechanical truths that save you money and give you back control of your own car, subscribe to this channel. And in the comments, write the word funnel if you have ever tried something like this yourself, or skeptical if you are still not convinced. I want to know where you stand. Now watch what happens when you apply this to reality. If you have ever watched a technician spray aerosol cleaner into the throttle body and call it a service, you saw the surface being cleaned while the deeper passages remained untouched. The carbon you cannot see builds up behind the throttle plate, around the idle air control valve, and on the intake valve stems. That buildup changes the air-fuel mixture, causing the engine to hunt at idle, hesitate on acceleration, and eventually trigger a lean code. The dealer will tell you the component failed, sell you a replacement, and charge labor. The old mechanic knows the component did not fail. It suffocated. The difference between a 50-cent treatment and a $200 repair is knowing where to send the solvent. Remember the carbon layers we talked about on the throttle plate? Same principle applies to the entire intake tract. Skip the right method, and you will be looking at an $800 intake manifold removal in 9 months. If what you are hearing started to shift something in your understanding, stay with this. The hidden world of mechanical logic is about to open further. The vacuum line that Seu Ricardo used, usually a 1/4-inch rubber hose connected to the intake manifold, is the same line that modern scan tools use for brake booster checks or fuel pressure tests. The difference is intent. He did not measure pressure. He used it as a delivery system for a solvent that cost next to nothing. When you connect a funnel to that line and let the transmission fluid trickle in at idle, the engine pulls the fluid through the intake, past the throttle plate, over the valve stems, and into the combustion chamber. The heat of combustion vaporizes the carrier oil while the detergents stay on the metal surfaces, dissolving carbon that commercial sprays cannot reach. The sensory details matter here. You notice a faint sweet smell from the exhaust as the fluid burns off, then a thin white smoke that clears after 30 seconds. If you put your hand near the tailpipe during the process, the moisture feels slippery, carrying dissolved varnish out of the engine. That is the evidence. Seu Ricardo would run the engine until the smoke stopped, then rev it gently to 2,000 RPM for another minute. He knew the engine needed to reach full operating temperature before the treatment, around 190 degrees Fahrenheit, on the coolant gauge, so the fluid broke down carbon at the molecular level instead of just washing over it cold. Now, here is where many people miss it. Using too much fluid floods the catalytic converter and creates a misfire, which sets a code and defeats the purpose. The correct amount is roughly 4 ounces for a 4-cylinder engine, 6 for a V6, and 8 for a V8. That is half a can in most cases. The old mechanic did not measure. He watched the engine response and backed off the moment the RPM started to stumble. Too little and the carbon stays. Too much and you create a problem that did not exist. The middle ground is everything. That middle ground is the difference between a tool and a weapon. The exact amount matters because the engine tells you the truth if you learn to listen. Subscribe to stay in this brotherhood where we measure by response, not by the book. And in the comments, tell me the size of your engine and how much fluid you think it needs. Let me know you are paying attention. This is where the hidden pattern emerges. The ingredient works because it was never designed for this job. The same principle applies to a dozen other automotive fluids that the industry has repackaged and marked up 300%. Power steering fluid cleans injectors as well as some professional injector cleaners. Automatic transmission fluid mixed with acetone in a 1-to-1 ratio creates a penetrating oil that outperforms commercial brands for freeing rusted bolts. The dealers know these tricks, but they have no incentive to share them. A 50-cent fix that works once eliminates a $200 service that could be repeated every 30,000 miles. The math is simple. The secrecy is intentional. If this made sense to you the moment you heard it, that is because you already have the instinct. Some people listen to this and dismiss it as folklore. You are not that person. You recognize that the automotive industry has shifted from repair to replacement, and the old methods survive because physics does not care about profit margins. Write in the comments the name of the old mechanic who taught you something similar, the one who refused to sell you parts you did not need. That is how this brotherhood communicates. Now, the final layer. The method described works best on port-injected engines where fuel never touches the intake valves. Most direct injection engines built after 2007 accumulate carbon on the valves at a much higher rate because there is no fuel spray washing them. For those engines, the transmission fluid trickle into the vacuum line still works, but you have to repeat it every 15,000 miles instead of every 50,000. The carbon builds faster because the heat is higher and the detergent from the fuel never arrives. The old mechanics did not encounter this problem because direct injection did not exist in 1973, but the principle remains the same. The solvent needs to reach the back of the valve, and the vacuum line is still the shortest path. There is a deeper trick that most people never discover. If you pull the intake air temperature sensor before the treatment, the engine runs richer and the fluid cleans more aggressively. Reconnect the sensor afterward, clear any pending codes, and the engine adapts back to normal within a few drive cycles. This is not in any dealership service manual because it voids the warranty if you are under coverage, but for a car past its warranty period, it is a method that costs nothing extra. This is just the surface of what the old mechanics kept in their heads. The next level involves using the same fluid to clean the turbocharger oil lines, where sludge forms from heat cycling and starves the bearings of lubrication. That is a separate process requiring a different technique, but the logic is identical. Find the path of least resistance, introduce the solvent at the right temperature, and let the engine do the work. Think about the last time a shop charged you for a cleaning that did not last. The carbon returned because they cleaned the easy parts and left the hard parts untouched. The 50-cent method penetrates where the $200 spray cannot. That is not marketing, that is physics. So Ricardo understood it, because he could see the results in the color of the spark plug after the treatment. A clean plug tip with a light tan color meant the carbon had been removed. A wet black plug meant he had used too much fluid and needed to back off next time. The spark plug does not lie. That tan color means the carbon is gone and the engine is breathing again. Subscribe so you do not miss the next method that the dealerships hope you never learn. And in the comments, describe the last spark plug you pulled. Was it clean, wet, or coated in black crust? That is the evidence we need. The industry has changed, but carbon has not learned to dissolve itself. The chemistry of detergents from 1973 still works on engines built in 2025 because the chemical bonds that hold carbon to metal are the same. The temperature of combustion is still high enough to burn off the carrier oil. The vacuum line is still there, hidden under plastic covers that snap off with a flathead screwdriver. The knowledge has not been lost, it has been hidden behind a paywall. Closing time. You now know what the dealership hopes you will forget. The ingredient on the shelf has more cleaning power than the machine in the bay. The next time a service advisor quotes $200 for an induction cleaning, you have a choice. You can hand over the money and hope they use the right machine, or you can spend 50 cents in 15 minutes and do it yourself with a method older than the advisor. The old mechanic would tell you to keep the $200 in your pocket, buy a can of the cheapest automatic transmission fluid, and spend the rest on something that lasts. The plastic engine cover that snaps off with a flathead screwdriver reveals the vacuum line. The cheapest can on the shelf, usually on the bottom row under the branded fluids, costs less than a gallon of milk. The engine at operating temperature pulls the fluid through the intake tract and cleans what no spray nozzle can reach. That is the complete system. No scan tool required. No dealership appointment, no recurring charge. Seu Ricardo would finish the job by taking the car for a 10-minute drive, running the engine through its full RPM range to clear any remaining residue. He would check the tailpipe with his thumb afterward. Dry and clean meant the treatment worked. Oily and wet meant he had used too much. The feedback loop took minutes, not days. That is the difference between a mechanic who owns the process and a customer who owns a receipt.